Great, thank you, Chris. All right, so for today we're going to talk about scripting. So I'm excited to show you this. It's kind of a well-kept secret. We've had scripting for a very long time as part of our emulation client, and not a lot of folks take advantage of it. There are some really neat features in our scripting capabilities that allows you to optimize your processes and do things without having to touch the back-end server, right? So for example, if you wanted to parse a barcode and send certain data or a piece of just that barcode, you can do that via scripting without having to get a programmer to do anything on the back end. And so that's really key there, is that you know, it's expensive and it's cost prohibitive sometimes to make changes to the host application. So our scripting is pretty simple, and it can also be very difficult as well. We have a lot of capabilities to get really complex and do things like math calculations and things like that prior to submitting data to your back-end server. Or you can send very simple keystrokes. So if you wanted to script out a carriage return and then activate that carriage return on a specific screen, then you can do that. And so I'm going to go through some examples today of some scripts that I have pre-created for customers, and then I'm also going to create some scripts from scratch as well, so to get you guys familiar with that scripting process. The script that we're going to be writing together here is an actual request from a customer that came in yesterday. So it's going to be pretty neat. We're going to go ahead and read what the requirements are for that script, and we're going to go ahead and script it out. Okay. So the best way to do your scripting or your development is to use our Windows client, right? So everybody who's running TE or Wavelink TE on the mobile devices will be able to develop using the Windows client, and then once you've completed, you can just export that into a file, which then you can push down to the mobile devices. So it makes it easy so that way you don't have to develop on the actual mobile device itself, which can be really hard. All right, so our scripting is part of our emulation client, so there's no additional fee or cost involved in scripting at all. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you where to find it. So this is the Windows client that you can see on my screen right now. I'm going to go ahead and click on Term, Configure, and then you'll see there's a script editor. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and launch that. Okay, there's going to be a password, which is system. This is the password, if I can type today. Okay, and that will bring you into our script editor. So I have a few scripts already included here, one for detecting errors and one that's parsing a barcode. So I'm going to go ahead and show you those two real quick, and then we're going to run and execute those scripts. So there's different ways you can execute scripts, and we'll talk about that. And there's also different calls that you can make inside the script as well. So we have a whole library of calls to perform certain actions, right? So just to go over this script real quick here. So I just did an edit. And the first part of this is basically the script name, okay? And the second part here, I'm activating this script for a specific profile. Okay, so if this profile doesn't exist, then the script doesn't run. So this gives you the capability to run a script based on different servers, right? So if we have 5250 emulation to an AS400, and then you also have a BT emulation to a different server, but you only want the script to run for the 5250 emulation, then you can set that up so that the script only runs for that. Okay, and then on this particular script, I have it activated on screen update. So basically, every time the screen gets refreshed, this script is going to run, and it's going to run real quick. It doesn't, you won't see any lag or anything like that on your network or on the devices itself. Okay, so basically, this one is basically going to do a check to see if there's an error message on the screen. So it's saying if I see on the screen error or invalid or item not in location, then I want to disable the scanner. Okay, so it's going to go to disable scanner and disable scanners right here, and it's going to send an escape sequence back to the server to disable the scanner, and it's also going to send a message to the user and say the scanning is disabled so that they know. Okay, and then lastly, it's going to play a custom error message or error sound as well. Okay, then it's going to loop, right, until the message is cleared. Once the message is cleared, we send an escape sequence to re-enable the scanner, and then we send a message that says the scanning is now enabled. So as you can see, for the use case for this, of course, is a user that's heads down and doing multiple scans. And let's say they're scanning serial number, for example, and they're scanning, and they get a duplicate a serial number, so then they get an error. A lot of times in a noisy environment, it's hard to hear that error tone that's being played on the mobile device. And so the user would continue and keep scanning, not knowing that they're really not sending any data back to the system, right? And so what this does now is when they get that invalid or duplicate serial number, the scanner is disabled. So that prevents the user now from continuing because now they can't scan anymore. So this is really, really handy because numerous times I've seen or heard, a user would be scanning 50 serial numbers and they get to the 50th one and realize they had an error on the third serial number to scan, so now they have to rescan everything again. So this, again, is a time saver, and this is a script that you guys can, use right away. And so after this call, feel free to contact us for any of the scripts that I'm going to be showing you today. Okay, so we're going to launch this one and the script and watch it work in action. Okay, so I have a simple Telnet server running on my PC, and again, this is being activated on screen update. Okay, so here's some of the activation conditions. So you can call a script from a menu, which is usually handy if you're doing some debugging or testing, but in real production, you're not going to have a user go to a menu to launch a script, right? You can activate a script on a key combination, which is neat. So if you wanted to, let's say, launch an application via script by pressing F1, for example. So you can say, maybe you have a bunch of help files in your application that you want to launch. By pressing F1, you can launch that script that calls that specific help file. Okay. You can have a script execute when the session connects, and then you can have the script execute when barcode data is being scanned. Okay. So let's go ahead and test this error detection script here. Okay. So the profile that it was set to was for, I'm going to change it to high jump because I changed my script. So let's go ahead and edit that script real quick. Okay. So the profile is actually going to be high jump. Okay. So that's the profile that we want this script to be executed with. So I'm going to go ahead and launch it. Okay. And so this is just my user login here. Okay. And so if I make a mistake, so let's, in this demo, some of these options aren't valid. So receipts is valid, so I can hit 1 and enter and it goes through, but I know unload doesn't take me anywhere, so if I hit 1. So I get the message saying my scanning is now disabled. It played my error message, which happens to be Pac-Man dying, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and clear this message by hitting enter. And then you can see there my scanning is now re-enabled because the message is cleared. Okay, so that's a very simple but very useful script. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and disconnect. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and write our own script, okay, which is going to be fun. So I'm going to go ahead and go to term here and then configure and go to our script editor. Okay, and what I'm going to do is do a script from scratch. So I'm going to do add as text. Okay, so now here is our script editor. So the name of this script is going to be, let's see here, parse the date, okay? And let me explain that real quick. We had a case that came in. I'm going to go ahead and jump to this one here, customer B. Basically, what they wanted to do was they wanted to scan a barcode that contained 8 digits and have the data split into 3 input fields, month, day, and year. Okay, and so what they did was they sent me a screenshot of what that screen is in their WMS, and I recreated that using our own demo server. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like here. I'm going to save the script right now, even though it's empty. Okay, and then I'm going to connect up to that server that has this screen. Okay, so this is what their screen looks like coming from their host. And on the actual invoices or their document, the date is in the form of month, day, and year, right? So it would be 01/21/2016, for example. So there's 8 characters there. And so when they scanned this barcode that had the 8 characters, it basically threw it all into where the prompt was, right? And so it basically just put it into the month field, which is the first part. And so it's invalid and it errors out, so it causes them issues. So today, what they're doing is they're manually entering it in. Right? So they hit 01, so 01, and then they enter, and to get to the day, hit 21, hit enter to get to the year, and then they enter in the year. Okay, and then it validates that, hey, this is what I entered in, and then enter to re-enter a new date. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to automate that. Okay, so we don't want to do this on every screen, right? So we only want it to parse the data when it's on the screen where it has manufacturing date. So that's something else to keep in mind, okay? Because we don't want to activate this for the entire WMS. We only want to activate it for this particular screen. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our script editor. Okay, so there's a couple things that we're going to need. We're going to need to define our variables. Okay, so we know that we're going to need month, the day, and the year, right, to be parsed out. And then we also need a variable to hold the entire barcode data. Okay, and so that's what we're going to define right now. So we have both string and number data types, which are pretty common amongst all the programming languages. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a string called data. Okay, so that's going to be all my barcode data. Okay, so when I scan that barcode, I want the entire content to be stored in the variable called data. Okay, I'm going to have another string here called month. Okay, I'm going to have another string called day, and one more called year. Okay, and then what I want to do also, like I mentioned, is I want to make sure that this script only activates when the text manufacturing date exists on the screen. Okay, so that means I'm going to do an if or, right? And I'm going to have to set something to true or false. So I'm going to define a true or false value, which is a Boolean value. Okay, Boolean type, I should say. And I'm going to call it date found. Okay. And then I also need a type number for the actual barcode type, because we can set this to activate also only on code 128 or code 39, for example. Okay, so we need a number type. Okay, and then now we're going to go ahead and start our scripting. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to activate the script only when manufacturing date exists on the screen. So I'll move over here a little bit. You can see MFG date is on row 4. So that's where we're going to look for that data. Okay, and so one of the actions that we have, and again, all these actions are listed in our programming guide. So if we go to our scripting guide here and do a find, and we can do search screen. Okay, so we have search screen action here, and you can see here it tells you the syntax, right? So search screen, we're going to enter in the parameters that we want. So one, the search string, so what we're looking for, and where does it exist on that screen. Okay, and then if you want to take into consideration uppercase or lowercase. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back and find search screen. There it is. Okay, so now I picked the action search screen. So here's the search string. We have to assign it to a variable, so this is going to be my variable date found. Okay, I'm going to go to search string, and what we're looking for is MFG date. Okay, that's the string. Our top row is going to be 1, and oh, no, it's not going to be 1. It's going to be 4. And then our bottom row, if we wanted to search multiple rows for this key search string, we can, but I know it's only going to exist on row 4, so I'm just going to keep it at row 4 to be the only search. Okay, and then if you want to ignore the case, you can set it to true, so that's what we're going to do. We don't care if it's lowercase or uppercase. Now I'm just going to click on OK. So now I've entered that in for us. So now date found is going to be equal to whatever the screen search is for manufacturing date. So if it sees it, it's going to set date found to true. If it doesn't find it, it's going to set date found to false because that's a Boolean value. Okay. So now I can do my if statement. So I'm going to say if date found, right? So that's true. So if it finds MFG date on the screen, it's going to set that to true. And I'm going to now parse the data. So I want month, right? And then I want day, and I want year. Okay, so the month, if we look at our data, which contains 8 characters, it's going to be the first 2 characters, right? So that's going to be our month. So our month is going to equal, okay, and so we go back into our scripting guide again, and we have actions for string, for getting data from a string. So we have string left, string right, string middle, and then we can do string compares and things like that as well. Okay, so what I want is the first 2 characters, which is on the far left side. So I'm going to use string left. Okay, so if I look at our string left, it's basically saying get the blank number of characters from the left side. Okay, so I'm going to do string left. So I'm going to come up here to my actions. Okay, so it's going to be string left, and the data, or what we're passing to it is data. Okay, and we want the first 2 characters from the left side. Okay, let's see if that makes it any better. Okay, good. Okay, so that error is gone now. Okay, so that's month. Okay, and then the next part we want the day. Right, so day equals, and we're going to set it to string middle. Okay, and then we're going to pass the data again, and we want it to start in the 2nd position, and we want it to go 2 positions to the right of that. Okay, so the 2nd position starts right here, and if we go 2 positions, 1, 2, we'll get the 21 for our day. Okay, And then lastly, we want year equals, and so the year is on the right side, so we're going to do, you guessed it, string right. Okay, we're going to do data, and we're going to do 4 characters from the right side. Okay. All right. So now that we have parsed the data, what we want to do is send that data to the system. Okay. And so to do that, we can do key press. So I'm going to bring up the action key and do key press string. Okay. And the variable is going to be month. Okay. So that's the first part that I want to send, right? And then a lot of times the system will send things too fast. So I like to put in a delay in there, so 40 millisecond delay to give it time to move to the next field. Okay, so I'm going to then do key press key. And the key I want is going to be an enter, right? So I'm sending the month, and then now I'm sending carriage return right after that. Okay, and so I'm going to copy this for time's sake here, and okay, so paste, paste. Okay, so this is going to be month, and then we want day, and then we want year. Okay, and I'm going to format that a little bit. There you go. And then we're going to do our else. Okay, if we don't if date bound is false, all we want to do is send the data. Okay, so just to send the data, we can do a scan string, do data, comma 0. All right, so we're almost done here, and we're going to do our end if. Okay, so let's go ahead and build that, and we got 0 errors, 0 warnings, which is great. Okay, also when you're programming, of course, if you want to make any comments as you're going through, you just type in comment, and then you can type in text, and that will be the description of what the actual function is doing. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. Okay, and so I only want this to activate. So if I click on it, I can edit when for a specific profile. Okay, and on barcode scan, right? So I'm going to do on barcode scan. It's going to store my data, the scan, into the data variable. And then for my host, I wanted to do it for this host called date parse. Okay, and done. All right, so now let's test out our script. So again, it's on scan, so I should be able to just hit scan here, and it should execute that script for us. Let's go ahead and try it out. There you go. And so it inputted the 01, the 21, 2006, and parsed that out all automatically for us. So now, of course, that's a time saver to the user because they don't have to manually enter it in. We were able to accept the data and parse it and send it the way that we want to back to the server. Okay. One last thing I wanted to show you. I know we are running up on our time, and I'm sure there's probably some questions as well. So what I wanted to explain is that scripts could run in both telnet and web interfaces or emulation types. So I have another script here that was also a customer request. So we go to our script editor, parse barcode. And so this one is a little bit more complicated. And so in this script, what we're doing is we're looking for key identifiers. So if you look at a GS1 barcode, there's a ton of information in it. There's the GTIN, there's the batch, the production date, and sometimes you see a best before date there. And so it's coded into the barcode with these identifiers in parentheses, right? So you got the 0, 1, 11, 15, and 10 all in parentheses, and those are all identifiers. So 0, 1 is for the G10, 11 is for the production date, 15 is for the expiration date, and then 10 is for the batch, okay? And so we're doing the same thing as an example that I just showed you, but in this case, what we're doing is we're searching for those key identifiers first. So here's the item identifier. We're looking for 0, 1. The lot identifier, we're looking for 10. Production identifier 11, and so forth. Okay, and so we're doing the same thing as we did before, and we're parsing that data and saving them into different variables. Okay, and then once we do that, we just basically send that data in any order that we want. And keep in mind, data can persist over different screens as well. So if you create the variable and you want it to persist, you make that a persistent variable, and you can call that data later on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that here. And so this script will run when we run our web emulation profile. I'm going to go ahead and run that to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to go to Connect, and here is our demo. Okay, and so I created a simple web form to mimic the data that was being parsed. So I got the G10, the batch, the production date, and best before date. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this here. Okay, and paste that into our scanner. Okay, so there's the data. And so now what I'm expecting is when I scan this, it's going to parse the data into the specific fields. I'm going to go ahead and do scan. And there's the data. Okay, and notice that even though the lot or the batch number was at the very end of the data, we were able to send it again, like I mentioned, any way we want to. So we sent it second because batch lot number came second before production date and best before date. Okay, so that's what I have for scripting. I know it's very quick, but hopefully you get the bigger picture and see that scripting can help improve processes. We have a ton of use cases of where our customers are using scripting, with their current production environment. Please feel free to ask questions, and we'll go ahead and turn it over back to Chris to fill those in.
All right. Thanks, Bailey. That was a great presentation. Really appreciate you taking the time to go through that information. Do you have a quick question here? And this is from Bart. It says, just a question about the error disable scanner. Does the disable scanner function turn the laser from scanner so that user does not see red lines anymore?
Yes. So when you disable scanner, that's exactly what it does. It prevents the user from seeing the laser when they're pulling the trigger. And so disable scanner is just one of the calls that we can do, right? So we can also disable the keyboard as well. So for fields where you require scans and you don't want users to use the keyboard, you can force them to use the scanner by disabling the keyboard, so you can do vice versa.
All right. Thanks for the question, Bart. Let us know if we answered that for you. If anyone else has a question, feel free to send it over during chat, and we'll give it just a second here to see if anyone else has additional questions. All right. It looks like we don't have any additional questions. Bailey, I think that's it for questions right now. Anything you want to say in closing, or?
No, I just want to, hopefully everybody sees the power of scripting. And there's a ton of use cases. As you go through your existing workflows and processes and transactions, watch closely on what the customer or what the end users are doing, right? A lot of times they're making mistakes, where you can prevent them from making those mistakes. Even just something as simple as navigating to a specific transaction. If there's 6 screens that they have to go through to get to that specific transaction, automate that for them. If you have users that are going to always be in receiving, or if you have users who are always going to be in picking, or picking specific scanners and receiving specific scanners, then automate that process. When they log in, have it go right to the receiving process instead of going in through 6 different menus to get there. All I want to say is take advantage of the scripting, it's there, it's free, and it's very powerful.